Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the BSB, and welcome to episode 70 of the show. Like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment to this video, and of course follow us on social media at SerieBSB on Twitter, PitchSetboard on Instagram, and you can listen to this on Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other listening platform you want to, and you're welcome. Let's get straight into the action on Sunday, of course, and as you saw in the image of the thumbnail, we're going to be kicking things off from Italy and from the Serie A, of course, for a change. AS Roma kicked off things against Udinese, defeating them 3-0. It was, as usual, pretty much a first half rout from Roma. Two goals from Jordan Veretout, a penalty in the 25th minute after a goal in the 5th minute, a disallowed goal for Pellegrini in the 30th minute, but that didn't stop Roma from going for more. It was 3-0 at the end. Pedro with a beautiful finish, scoring the third goal. It was a game that, pretty much was a one-sided game for Roma against Udinese. 3-0, an important victory for them. That gives them the third spot, of course, taking advantage of the losses of the likes of Juve and Lazio. Going to get to them in a moment. Atalanta sneaked out and ground out a victory against Cagliari away from home, 1-0. It wasn't the easiest of games by any stretch of the imagination. Luis Muriel managed a goal in the 90th minute to give Atalanta the 3 points that were about really to share the spoils with Cagliari in a game where they were dominating and they had a lot of chances, but they couldn't quite finish. Cagliari missed a penalty late on in the game, failing to score, and Atalanta ground out a 1-0 victory thanks to their Colombian striker, keeping up in the top spots, of course. Maybe not for the Champions League, maybe not for the title, but more to keep up with the Champions League spots, in which, of course, they still have a strong chance of getting as well. That is the 13th goal for Luis Muriel. He's quite up there with the top scorers, 14 for Ibrahimovic and Immobile, as well as 16 for Lukaku and Ronaldo. Not quite the far battle. You could still catch up to them, of course. In Sampdoria, Sampdoria defeated Fiorentina 2-1. It was Keita Balde opening the scoring in the 31st minute, Vlahovic equalising in the 37th, and Quagliarella in the 71st minute, giving Sampdoria the all-important win in a game where they were second best. To be fair, they weren't exactly the strongest or the best side on the pitch, yet they still got the important victory. They're in low-key great form, Sampdoria, as of late. People maybe don't notice that, but they are on, some seriously, they picking up some serious good points, of course. There is the odd draw and loss here and there, but overall, their form is really, really good, and they're keeping up, their 30 points. Quite far from Europe at 10th in the table, but still very doing well. But I'll tell you who's not in a good shape. It is Fiorentina, 22 points at 16. They're not far from the relegation. It might seem that they are 5 points ahead of Torino, which means that they are safe, but they're not. And the rest of the season isn't that. Doesn't look like that good for them, really. The next couple of fixtures for them is going to be against Spezia, Udinese, Roma, Parma, Benevento, before going to Milan at the end of March. These are games that I think Fiorentina should win, at least a couple of them, to get a little bit up of the table and avoid maybe a very grim fate that could await them in the rest of the season. Crotone against Sassuolo. Sassuolo managed a 2-1 victory away from home, of course, thanks to Domenico Berardi and Francesco Caputo. Between them, Adam Unas scoring the only goal for Crotone, of course, the loanee from Napoli. The game, I think, was dominated by Sassuolo, of course, as you would expect, really, in this kind of games, because Sassuolo are a great team at the moment, and performing really, really well. A win that propels them to 8th on the table, 34 points. They are now probably, it feels like there's a gap between, them and the rest of the table below them. Also a gap between the rest of, obviously a gap between them and the rest of the table above them. They will not, they maybe not quite rescue European place. It seems like European places are going to be guaranteed, and what a strong lineup for European places, by the way. Inter, AC Milan, Roma, Juve, Napoli, Atalanta, and Lazio, potentially, who knows. Sassuolo, maybe not quite there. They don't have a real hope of getting a European place, because even the cup finals between Atalanta and Juve, although probably they'll take solace in the fact that they had a great season. And, of course, it was the big game, the big main event of the night. Inter Milan hosting Lazio at the San Siro. 3-1 it ended between the two sides. Again, I mentioned in the review that that Inter Milan, need to win the title, and no excuses for them now. Like, really, really no excuses. Like, they don't have a cup, they don't have a European competition to go through, so they have no excuses whatsoever to lose the title this season. Even you could talk about injuries and COVID-19, they don't have that anymore now. So you could really say that they are the favourites, and I mean the favourites to win the Serie A title. I'm not going to mention a lot more than what I did in the review, really, but I'm just going to say that it's going to be a big, big disappointment for Antonio Conte if they don't win the title from here. And particularly with the derby of della Maddalena, of course, coming next Sunday, the win that derby is going to give them a lot of edge in terms of winning the title. They need to win it. I mean, Antonio Conte, to be considered a successful season, he needs to win the title. He got close last season to winning two trophies, really, in the Europa League and the Serie A. He literally failed at the last hurdle in the Europa League and didn't quite make it in Serie A, and, he had some serious results that could have been, different, could have had a different outcome if he won some games instead of drawing or losing, for example. But this season, it is different. This season, it's going to be, all about him, and the focus in the Serie A is on him, despite everyone, AC Milan could do it. Juve, usual favourites, but it looks like it will not be quite their season. It is Conte's Inter who have the edge. It is Conte's Inter who have all eyes on them, like almost quite literally, because, again, no European competitions, the squad is fit, is healthy, they're playing really well. Like, the squad is not just, like, it's playing really well. Like, they're performing really, really well. And even the elimination from the cup, like, was by the oddest and the slightest of margins. Like, seriously, it was by the oddest margin of failure there. It certainly was the kind of game that Inter, liked against Lazio. And, they would need more of that. They would need more of that kind of energy that they have to win the title. Again, I mean, it all revolves around the idea that they have no European football. They have no distractions whatsoever to stop them from winning the title. And everybody expects them to win the title. That's what makes the derby a little bit extra. I mean, how long it has been since we said that a Milan derby is for the title? Like, is that a Milan derby is going to be deciding a title, and one of those clubs could go on to win the Serie A? It has been a long while. Like, it has been, like, the derby della Maddalena, like, the Milan derby almost went into obscurity. Like, seriously, it almost did. It almost went into obscurity. Because of the lack of a certain stakes, like the lack of stakes in the derby, almost made it go below the usual rating in people's minds. Like, people started giving more importance to City versus Liverpool, to Real versus Laliga Madrid over Inter versus AC Milan this season, and unfortunately with no crowds to witness that. It will be a derby for the title. Hopefully, it will happen next season. Projectedly, crowds will be returning, when the vaccines are distributed to a certain percentage or something like that. But the derby is going to have an extra special importance because of the situation this week. There's two big hypotheses for the derby. Hypothesis number one: Inter would win, and they would go top of the table with 4 points ahead of AC Milan, and that would give them the advantage. And probably nobody's going to catch up to them because AC Milan are going to have Europa League competition to look forward to. Just the Thursday before, they're going to be playing a game away from home to Red Star Belgrade, so that is not going to be easy. Also, Inter are going to be in quite the position as well. I mean, again, it all revolves around the fact that they have no European competitions and no distractions in the middle, and they're going to face an AC Milan squad, an AC Milan side that is not doing its best at the moment. And the game against Spezia is probably a big evidence of that. They didn't register any shot on target in that game, and that is quite disappointing. I mean, if you didn't do it against Spezia, and if Spezia got 15 shots against you, imagine how Inter could do. And imagine you pushing forward and having to defend that kind of Inter. I mean, I certainly give the advantage to Inter now to win this derby, and they look very, very favourites, and I reckon it will take a very, very majestic job from AC Milan to stop Antonio Conte from winning the title, because they need to do that. They need to stop them. I'm not going to say their last chance, but because Inter could slip and could collapse later on, but we still have 16 games to go, but still. I would say, if Inter win the derby next Sunday, the SerieA is going to get even closer to them than what they ever think. One game is still in the fixture, of course. Hellas Verona play Parma on Monday in Serie A. The table stands like this after pretty much the end of round 22. Inter Milan with 50 points, of course, top of the table. AC Milan 49, Roma 43, Juventus 42 with a game in hand against Napoli, of course. 40 for Napoli, Atalanta and Lazio. That is quite the battle. They could sneak up top. Sassuolo 34, Verona 30, 25 for Genoa, Bologna 24, as well as Spezia, Udinese, Benevento. Fiorentina 22 points, 17 for Torino, and Cagliari 15, Parma 13, and Crotone 12 make the three in the relegation zone. From Italy, we go to Spain. 4 matches took place in the round 23 of La Liga. Real Madrid, of course, are the biggest winners, I think, of this Sunday. Getafe lost to Real Sociedad 1-0 at home. Levante lost to Osasuna 1-0 at home as well. And Villarreal lost as well to Betis 2-1. Only Real Madrid managed to win at their home on Sunday against Valencia, achieving some sort of revenge for the 4-1 loss early on in the season. I mean, that loss, let's be fair, it's not exactly something that stands for reason, because the circumstances of that game were really, very weird. 3 penalties for Valencia and the whole deal, basically. Real Madrid continued, their sort of mini revolt, mini surge in form, let's say, with a couple of wins that they have. As of at least the 3rd win in a row, a hard win against Huesca, a convincing win against Getafe in the midweek, and another convincing one against Valencia here. Another good performance from the likes of Toni Kroos and Karim Benzema scoring goals. Beautiful finishes, by the way, from Karim Benzema and Toni Kroos, and the quality players. I mean, people who somehow still sort of doubt the abilities of these two players are crazy. Of course, it was the continuation of the use of 3 in the back for some reason for Real Madrid, reverting to 4 in the back after using 3 in the last time out. Dani Carvajal returning from injury, but being injured straight again in the game, and that would not bode well for Real Madrid, who have, of course, a big game against Atalanta coming in the horizon. They dominated the game. I mean, simply, that's what you could say. They dominated the game. Valencia didn't have a lot to offer. 1 shot on goal and 1 shot of goal. I mean, pretty much they had 2 or 3 attempts overall in the game. They didn't have a lot to do, didn't have a lot to offer to Real Madrid, didn't have a lot to trouble them, so Real Madrid just dominated the game. They had a bit of a rough time in the first 10 minutes or so, but then, of course, it got going. 2 goals in the first half. Second half for game management. They almost got a third, only to be chucked off by offside. And they got an easy, not an easy, but breezed past Valencia in victory. Let's just say this. Of course, the look and the focus is not going to be on this game. It's going to be Atalanta versus Real Madrid on the 24th of February. Of course, next Tuesday it will be facing. It was next Wednesday. Of course, it will be Atalanta versus Real Madrid. A trip that's going to be really tricky for them. That is where the focus lies. Certainly, Atalanta are not an easy opponent, and it will not be an easy game for Real Madrid. So Zinedine Zidane better prepare himself, because I would say this, on the local front, in terms of La Liga, I think it is done and dusted. You could look at the table and say, oh, but Real Madrid are 5 points behind Atletico Madrid. But come on, let's not kid ourselves. 2 games in hand for Atletico Madrid. They win those, it's going to be 11 points. And there's no coming back from that. The only hypothesis where I could say, Atletico Madrid maybe will not win the title, as if they lose 1 or lose 2. I mean, even if they lose 1, I'm fine, but if they lose 2, probably we'll have a race. But I don't think they will have a race. I don't think Real Madrid are going to catch up to Atletico, and they're out of the cup already, so they better focus on the Champions League, their favourite competition, quote unquote, big air quotes, in that, by the way. So, of course, the La Liga fixtures still continue. Today there's one fixture, of course. Cadiz face Athletic Bilbao on Wednesday, by the way. Speaking of the games in hand for Atletico Madrid, they host, or they go trip to Levante. Of course, that's a game I think up for grabs really for Atletico Madrid 1 week before their big game against Chelsea as well in the Champions League. The standings for La Liga at the moment are like this: 54 points for Atletico Madrid, as I mentioned, with 2 games in hand, 49 for Real Madrid, 46 for Barcelona, 45 for Sevilla, 1 game in hand for both sides, 38 for Real Sociedad at 5th, 36 for Villarreal, 33 for Betis, 30 for Granada, 29 Celta Vigo, 27 for Levante, Athletic Bilbao with 25 as well as Osasuna, 24 for Valencia, Getafe and Cadiz, 22 for Alaves, 21 for Eibar, 21 for Valladolid, Elche with 18 and Huesca at the very bottom with 16 points. And, potentially saving the best to last, we go to the Premier League. Of course, we go to England. By the way, 2 games were played in the Bundesliga, of course, so to keep score, Eintracht Frankfurt defeated FC Köln 2-0, Wolfsburg defeated Borussia Mönchengladbach 0-0. Go back to the Premier League now. 4 games were taking place on Sunday. Southampton taking the lead against Wolves. They dropped points. The Wolves turned things around in the second half. Ruben Neves and Pedro Neto with the goals after Danny Ings' opener in the first half. Brilliant finish, by the way, from Danny Ings. You should go watch that goal. 2-1 it ends for Wolves away from home. An important victory for them. That, will not do much for them, to be fair. But in terms of the last couple of games they had, it's really a good victory for them. But I think Wolves, they have 4 losses in the last 5 in the last 6, really. 4 losses in the last 5 for Wolves. Dropping points plenty. Doesn't look exactly a good sort of form. But I'll tell you what, Southampton are the worst coming off of it, really. 5 straight league losses for Southampton. The only wins they had in the last 7, and the last 8, really, and you could say in the last 9 even. It's the 3 wins in the cup against Shrewsbury in the 4th round, or the 3rd round, Arsenal in the 4th round, and Wolves in the 5th round. So Southampton, once top of the table, I might add, if you forgot, now find themselves 13th on the table with 29 points. I mean, how things have changed, really. It's not about the nature of the Premier League, it's about Southampton losing form just like that. It's a bad run again, 5 straight losses in the league. It doesn't get worse than that, and for someone like Ralph Hasenhüttl, and those 5 losses, of course, include the thrashing they took against United 9-0, for Ralph Hasenhüttl, that is not lovely. That's not lovely. You don't want to see that heading into the business end of the season. I mean, you could lose even more ground. I'm not going to say that Southampton are going to be relegated. I think they're far from that, very, very far from that. But I mean, from going from the top of the table and from people claiming that you could be in a European spot, playing for Champions League, for Europa League, hovering around the mid-table to finding yourselves in 13 and 14. It's quite a fall from grace, and, again, the victory might not do a lot for Wolves, but the loss did a lot for Southampton, did a lot of bad things for Southampton. Anyway, West Brom hold Man United hostage to a draw 1-0, and they were leading early on by Dian. 2 minutes into the game, of course, a goal that sparked a lot of controversy about the fact whether it's a free kick on Lindelof or not. I mean, the referee decided it was a free kick, but then went to VAR and overturned his decision. And there was a whole lot of controversy about this goal. First, there was a doubt of offside. Then, of course, the free kick discussion. I mean, I certainly think that Lindelof should have done better. Like, I know that it might be a free kick in the end, and through some lenses of other referees it would be a free kick. But they look at that goal and say, Lindelof should have done better. That's bad defending from Lindelof, that's bad defending from Maguire as well. I mean, it's the usual drill from Man United. But thankfully for them, they have someone like Bruno Fernandes. And when you have Bruno Fernandes, there's a lot of problems that could be solved on the pitch. He kept them in the game. He saved 1 point for them in a game where they dominated, they took chances, but they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. United felt so stale in this game, but somehow managed a point. I mean, Bruno Fernandes, bailed them out against West Brom in both matches. A penalty at Old Trafford and a goal here. And it was a beautiful goal, by the way. You should check it out. I mean, but of course, I think a point that I want to mention here, the worst probably thing about this game is what happened afterwards. Martial got a lot of abuse as well after the performance, and it just doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. I mean, I don't know what these things are going to be stopping. Why we still? I mean, Tuanzebe got that after the game against Sheffield United. Mike Dean got a lot of abuse and death threats after the game against Southampton. I mean, really, or the game against West Ham. Sorry. Seriously. I mean, this thing has to stop. This whole debacle of racial abuse on social media has to stop, and it has to stop from the social media. Like the FA, the English FA, the English League send messages and letters to Twitter to enforce the policy even more against these kind of racist posts on Twitter. But let's face it, I mean, unfortunately, that's what Twitter is made for. It's made for, it's a mixed bag. It's an ocean of tweets. And mostly you get the worst out of it. Stay strong, Martial, stay strong to Tuanzebe, stay strong to everyone who faced these racial abuses, and, hopefully, it will fizzle away. I'm not going to say it will die, but it will fizzle away soon, because there will be a lot of sick people still thinking, in a racist way, but hopefully these things will see less and less of them. Back to the actual football again, this result sends United potentially out of the title picture, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer himself, almost conceding the title just like Jurgen Klopp did 24 hours prior. It's 7 points ahead behind Manchester City. City have a game in hand against Everton, played it on Tuesday, and of course it will be, realistically it will be hard for them to catch up, but all it needed, just a couple of bad results for City. You don't expect that to be happening, but it will happen. Arsenal managed to defeat Leeds 4-2, a game that should have been comfortable for Arsenal. Was made very, very nervous in the last 20 minutes after Arsenal were leading 4-0. Aubameyang hat-trick, returning to score in big ways this season. The first hat-trick of the season. He hasn't been scoring in a while, and finally he explodes. 3 goals for him it is then. It takes his tally to 8 goals this season. A low tally, of course, for someone like Aubameyang who's been scoring loads for the last couple of seasons, but still, he will take the win. 2 goals from Struijk and Helder Costa made the game really, really nervous. Defensive mistakes, really, from Arsenal in those 2 goals. The poor defending overshadowed a great performance by Aubameyang and overshadowed a great overall performance by the club. Odegaard was a starter in the game. He was, doing his best. That was his first proper start for Arsenal. He did really good. Emil Smith-Rowe with an assist to Aubameyang on the 4th goal, proving again why he is a really good player. Granit Xhaka with an assist to Aubameyang, and the penalty, of course, for the 2nd goal. Hector Bellerin scoring the 3rd. Again, it should have been an easy win for Arsenal, but they made it really, really uncomfortable through their bad defending. They will take the 3 points, though, where it matters. And believe it or not, now Arsenal are 6 points behind Liverpool, 5 points behind Chelsea, and they could go for more. They could go, even higher up the table, because of if they keep on going with the good form. Leeds were right behind them. They could have overlapped them if Leeds won, but that didn't happen. And Arsenal now keep their 10th position, pretty firm, but not very far from the European spots. And again, the best thing about this game is the fact that Aubameyang scored again. Everton drop points against Fulham. And Premier League is crazy. You defeat Tottenham 5-4, and then you lose to Fulham 2-0 at home. Football has it all. And believe it or not, the crazy thing about this game is Fulham dominated Everton at the Goodison Park. And obviously the excuse is there. You could find the excuse that Everton were tired from that game and physically they were exhausted. We saw that with Tottenham because they were exhausted in the game against City. And you could say the same pretty much about Everton against Fulham. Davis was there, Coleman was there. At 33 years of age, Seamus Coleman shouldn't be playing 120 minutes and then 90 minutes against Fulham, and he didn't. He was subbed off in the game. Davis also started, Rodriguez started, Sigurdsson started, Richarlison started, Andre Gomes was almost the same side that was starting in the game against Tottenham. They start against Fulham, fresh, rested pretty much in the midweek, no cup football to be interested in. They focused and they got 3 points, important 3 points for Fulham more than Everton really, despite the fact that they're still 7 points away from safety, although they would take the points where they matter. It looks like they would be relegated, but for Everton, it's a bad position. Just after they started racking up wins, started racking up good form, Everton slip again and, lose important 3 points that could have propelled them to somewhat to joint, 4th on Liverpool. Before, of course, the big game was going to be the Merseyside derby next week for them. And, they will relish the chances. Now, I think this will be a more 50-50 before going to Anfield, of course, next week. I don't know what's going to be happening in that game, but certainly this is going to be a very interesting watch for everyone. Of course, the table of the Premier League stands like this before Monday. Man City with 53 points, United with 46, as well as Leicester City, 40 for Liverpool, 39 for Chelsea and West Ham, 37 for Everton, 36 for Villa and Tottenham, 34 for Arsenal, 32 for Leeds, 30 Wolves, Southampton and Crystal Palace, 29, 26 for Brighton and Burnley, 25 for Newcastle, 18 Fulham, 13 West Brom and Sheffield United, who play Chelsea today with 11. Who play Newcastle, are 11 points. Of course, the 2 games in hand today, West Ham play Sheffield United, Chelsea play Newcastle, on Monday, Burnley play Fulham on Wednesday, Everton play Man City as well, in the game in hand from round 16. And then, of course, the next round, it will be the Merseyside derby between Liverpool and Everton. Arsenal face City next Sunday. It's a big week in the Premier League. Southampton, Chelsea, a whole host of tasty fixtures to look forward do. That's it from me for this episode. I was your boy, the HOD of the BSB. Thank you for listening / watching, and of course follow us on social media, site BSB on Twitter, Pitch on Instagram. Subscribe to the channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates, and you can listen to this on Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other platform. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.